Okay, good afternoon, good evening, I guess, almost. I just wanted to start by extending my thanks to Jeff and to Todd and to the COYO conference committee for putting this event on. It's my first COYO conference, and getting a chance to see the group of people gathered in this room together and around the commitment of investing in our youth. It's super humbling for me, as somebody that's spent a whole bunch of my life committing to just that. I'm super inspired by us today. I also wanted to thank Jeff for putting me after Kekshan and reminding me how inadequate I am as a public speaker. Just so you know, the plan for today was for me to introduce you to Ben. And if you have a program, you've seen it. There's a guy named Ben McSheffrey's name on there. He was one of the founding students of the Man Up Inspire project that runs out of Ottawa. He was there at, I guess we call it ground zero a little bit, affectionately, in our group, and he was an instrumental part in building the project. He now studies at Brock University, which is super convenient for me. I could drive up 401 today, pick him up, but it turns out he's got a super bad fever, so he's not here either. That was supposed to be the end of my speech right there. Hand it over to Ben. Ben's almost as awesome, but without the United Nations credentials. Anyways, I'll do my best to fill Ben's shoes, to give you guys some insight as to what we've done, to maybe share some success models that we've had that you guys can take back into your communities. That's the most exciting part for me, is that maybe our experiences and our trials and a lot of tribulations might contribute to some growth and progress in your organization. Before I start, that's next. No. I bet you Kickshanna can fix it. No, okay, there we go. I just did want to offer a trigger warning before we start. I have some sensitive content that I'm going to share with you guys in the form of a video. It's a father retelling the story of his daughter's tragedy. I understand in a group like this, there's probably nothing that I could do to shock you, but I do understand that also in a room like this, some past experiences might create some adverse feelings, and you may need to excuse yourself from the room. I invite you to do that, and I'd ask the rest of you to accept those things with sensitivity as well. Okay, so Man Up, as Jeff mentioned in the profile, is a student leadership model that targets sexual violence. Our story started in April 2014. I was voluntold, I guess, and I think maybe it might be a case of entrapment. I might have a case for that with my old principal. She said, Travis, I'd like your help. I'd like you to go on this field trip. I think you really love it. We're going to take a bunch of the athletes, and they're going to go down to City Hall. There's a presentation. I'm like, okay, cool. I know most of these guys, so let's do it. And we arrived at City Hall, and I sort of looked at the speaking roster, a couple politicians, a couple police officers, and then this guy, Glenn Canning. You might have heard his name before. You most likely have heard of his daughter's name, Rehtaeh Parsons. She was a victim of an assault on the East Coast several years ago, maybe 2011, I want to say. And her father has been working on victim support advocacy in the political realm. And he's been working as a partner of Man Up ever since then. So we went to this presentation, and Glenn went on to tell his story. And I have a clip of him telling his story. I should say Rehtaeh's story. This clip is not the clip of our sort of founding moment. The conclusion was a little bit different, but I'll share it with you. And I'm not positive that's going to work. Let's see. A tech support. Can we maybe get a mouse click on there? Awesome. Thank you.
Well, Rehtaeh went to a sleepover one night on the 12th of November, 2011. And on that night, my daughter died. She literally died that night. It took a long, long time for the poison to end her life, but that's what happened to her. She went to a sleepover, and the girl that she slept over with said, hey, I know some guys down the street, a couple of boys, we should go down there and talk to them and meet them. So they did. And they went down the street, and one of the boys was in grade 10, one of them was in grade 11. The boy in grade 11 had vodka. And they said, hey, we should have a drink of vodka. And Rehtaeh remembers waking up the next morning, partially naked, between two boys she'd never seen before. She doesn't know what happened to her. She remembers very little of what happened that night. Some details were filled in later on for her. But she never knew these boys at all, and she knew something was very, very wrong with herself and with her body. Something for me as a man to go through a child suffering like this is absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable to walk into a bedroom and see that your daughter's in there laying on a bed crying and she's cut herself and she's just saying, I just want to die. April 3rd of 2013, of course it'd be a time and experience I'll never forget because it was the last day I ever saw my daughter alive. And I got it up to the front of her mom's house and Rtea leaned over, gave me a great big hug, a really nice tight hug, and kissed me on the cheek, and she looked me in the face and said, I love you, Dad. And then she paused for a second and she just nodded her head and she walked out of the car, and that was the last time I saw Rtea alive. I love you, Dad, are the last words she said to me. And the night I dropped her off, she wanted to go to McDonald's, but it was too late, so I said, no, I can't take you to McDonald's. It's too late at night, you know, it's after 9, you gotta go home, you gotta go to whatever the next day. I had to go to work. And I held her hand when she was in that bed, and I leaned over, and all I could think of was saying, if she wakes up, I promise I'll take you to McDonald's. But my daughter never woke up. She laid on that bed for 3 days before she died. I was holding her hand when the machines went off, and when the machines went off, that was the last part of her mind dying, and her blood pressure dropped, and she died. I'm here for these young people in this school who made a commitment that their school wasn't going to have a Rtea Parsons if they had any say in it at all. I really wish my daughter that night that she was with one guy from Man Up who knew he had to do something. If Man Up was around in that high school and one of those young men walked into the door, I might still have my daughter. That's why this is important.
Okay, so in a presentation just like this, minus the concluding thoughts, I was sitting in Ottawa City Hall with my team of around 14 guys and my co-director of Man Up, Aaron Leach. And Glenn actually paused right at the end of Retea's story. And he was sharing, he's obviously similarly emotional to that. He looked around at the guys and he literally stopped the presentation and he said, listen, I've been traveling the country for 2 years. I've been speaking to police officers, I've been speaking to lawyers, I've been speaking to politicians, and there's been some value in what I've been saying, but I haven't ever felt any hope until today. He said, today's the first time any young men showed up to hear my story. Today's the first time I felt like anybody in the room could actually make a difference for young girls moving forward in this country. And then he delivered a call to action to the boys. He literally walked away from the microphone and he said, I'm begging you to do something. So like this is, I'm tearing up a little bit on stage now. This is among the most obviously emotional moments of my life that I can remember, especially considering the fact it was on the heels of my firstborn daughter being born. So all of us are sitting there sort of in a puddle of tears going, yeah, I think I agree with you, Mr. Canning. I think we need to do something. So fast forward to the bus ride home. The boys are looking at me and they're looking at Mr. Leach. They're saying, we're going to do something, right? And it was like, yes. What are we going to do? I have no idea, guys. I don't have a clue how to do this. It's not something that typically we see young men or any men engaging in at that time. This is 2014, so I guess pre-Bill Cosby, pre-#MeToo era. This was foreign territory for us. But the guys were calling us out as teachers saying, like, we need to engage in this and we need to help. Well, now we're going to play the video again. Please no. Once a year is plenty for me. Can I get some help with that, guys? Okay, so basically the guys are like, let's get Mr. Canning to come into our school, and let's get him to talk. That'll be good. And I said, okay, I don't disagree with you guys. I can be open to reaching out to Mr. Canning or any victim for that matter. And I should say survivor. I'm sorry about that. Any survivor for that matter to come into the school and tell their story. Except I don't think that that's going to work. I said, I'm in, but I'm only in on a few conditions. Number one, I'm in, and you have my time and my full dedication if you can make me believe that this is going to work. number one. If you can make me believe that this is going to be sustainable, then I'll be in. And if you can make me believe this is going to be scalable, then I'm going to be in. Convince me of those three things, and then you have my commitment. And I sort of looked at Aaron and he said, okay, fine. So we sat down with the guys. We did a retreat. So this is one of the pillars of our movement, is to do a retreat with our leadership team, our student leadership team, off-site. We went around to a restaurant and we spent the day there, planning and talking and learning and discussing and bonding, quite honestly. And we said the only way this is going to work, from my experience as a teacher, is if we build a student empowerment model. So what does that even mean? What does that even look like? Let's talk about how we can get you guys equipped and capable to make this difference in your own communities. There's very little or nothing I'm going to be able to do from a platform speaking to kids to actually make this difference. I won't be there at that house party. I won't be there on those chat lines. I won't be there when this scary problem of male objectification of women is being incubated in your locker rooms, in our group chats. So you guys are the ones that would be there. Let's give you guys the power to do that. So we searched around for a little bit of research. We found a local guy, actually a guy from Ottawa, who was doing a lot of work. It's a corporate business model, actually, but a lot of work around what empowerment actually means. And he basically determined that in order for a successful empowerment model to work, you need three main elements. You need ability or capacity. So that's one thing we need to build in our student leaders. We need context. The kids need to understand the context in which they are working. They need to understand the context of the potential consequences. They need to understand the context of other guys growing up, all that kind of stuff. We need to invest into that. And then last thing, we need to give them the authority to act on what they build. So these three keys were the pillars that we would build our program around. So once we came to that conclusion of, okay, this is going to be a student empowerment model. This is not going to be a presentation, preach type format. This is going to be an empower and enable format. We built ourselves the Man Up Student Leadership Model. Man Up Student Leadership Model consists of four main elements. Number one, we have an Inspire conference. This is the first thing we planned, I guess. Well, I suppose our team retreat was the first thing we planned, but in terms of the grand scale Man Up, we would host an Inspire conference. It got its name because the kids said that the catalyst to this whole thing was a moment of inspiration, a moment where they were called to action upon their sort of newly found inspiration and desire to help create a change. They were met with a call to action. So like, we need to do that again. Like, every kid that feels the way we're feeling right now is going to act. And they had faith in that. So we said, okay, let's work with it. Let's go. Let's put on an Inspire conference. Okay, from that, each, I guess, have another, yeah. So the idea behind the Inspire conference would be this. If we could recruit several community organizations, we are like 95% school-based groups, but we frequently invite teams, sports teams into that group, community groups. There's been a YMCA group that came, which is pretty awesome. If we can find a motivated adult who's willing to put in the time and put in the work, and they build a team anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 people, then we have our mechanism in place. So we invite them to the Inspire conference. I also mentioned, by the way, that it was really critical to me that this initiative would be scalable. So this is a model of how our initiative was able to be scaled. This is, got the red one now. Okay, thanks. So this is a model of how our program has scaled through the Inspire conference over the years. So basically, if we can manage to recruit 10 kids from currently 28 different schools, then we hope to be able to reach 2,800 trained mentors by the end of a cycle. So it starts with the conference. Each team of those group of 10 come to the conference. They receive their inspiration, their call to action. They also receive leadership training on the day of, some team building exercises from some local community experts. Then they go off and they're challenged to host their own team retreat. Okay, at the team retreat, they're going to select some target issues involved in their school. We present them with a toolkit, so they actually have some of this stuff prescribed, although it's very loosely prescribed such that they can actually have autonomy in their own programs. So they get this toolkit, they go on their team retreat, they plan. We got a real problem with sexting, for instance. I'm going to have to talk to Telus after this. Plan some stuff around sexting, or we got a major problem with parties. We got a party culture that's really damaging around here. We got the hockey locker room, the stereotypical jock talk that's damaging. Whatever it is, they determine 8 to 10 different goals for the year, and they build sort of a concept around those at their team retreat. Then they launch a presence in the school. This is an annual cycle, by the way. So they're launching at their own school, so usually they're going to have their own assembly there. Sometimes they'll bring in a guy like Ben, who is awesome, to come into their school, one of the original founders. They do a lot of speaking in the city. They can come in and provide some support in that regard. And then the real meat and potatoes of the program is these things called buddy lunches. This is what's, I guess, unpredictably have been the most powerful aspect of what we do. So we said this has got to work. So at this point, this still sounds a lot like the stand on a stage and preach model, but when we get into the buddy lunch curriculum, I guess, which is all locally developed curriculum at each school, the way it works is once a month the team is going to meet. So if they've chosen sexting as their topic number one, they're going to learn about sexting. They're going to either bring in a guest or get a piece of multimedia that can come in and help and train. But the key to the whole thing is at each one of these meetings, each one of the student leaders is going to bring in one of their friends. So this could be a friend that is helpful to the cause. So somebody that we didn't know about that was really awesome in the school community that has some influence, let's bring them in to help. Or it could be somebody from the community that they think could use some of this education. And all these people are going to work together in sort of this safe space to learn about the cause and the consequence of these different behaviors and how they influence our school community and how they influence people individually. And at the end of the lunch, we, as a team and individually, produce a broader scale tool, a broader scale educational mechanism for the community where we can do a little bit of education, conversation starting in the whole group. So this is day one, the first, that's Ben, the one on the left with the if we remain neutral quote there. Those guys produced these posters, they're plastered around our school. It's amazing, those are produced in 2014. They're still hanging in our school today untouched. It's amazing, like you can put up a poster for anything else and the shelf life at our place is like 6 weeks, but something about these are untouchable, which I find is super humbling and awesome. The guys from the years following did similar things. So that's one of the guys from the group that graduated 2 years ago. They want to learn a little bit about consent, so he built this tool that he wanted to share with our school community. Everything is around education and conversation starting. So the evolution of Man Up over the course of its 5 years started as admittedly like an anti-rape group. We were uneducated, we didn't know much. We're like, we don't want that to happen at our school, so we're gonna stop that. It's grown to a way bigger model where we've chosen 3 pillars of things to focus on. We categorize everything in these 3 pillars. We teach the kids about bystander intervention, give them ground level training so that if ever they come across a situation that they might be able to neutralize or mitigate, they have those tools. Number 2, we educate them on healthy masculinity and on positive values that they can bring into their community and how they can enrich the lives around them, but also their own lives and move forward into healthy adulthood. And then the last one is the leadership training where we teach them how to have an impact on the rest of their community. Cyclical, scalable, all that kind of stuff. We're still in business 5 years down the road. This coming April, we'll be hosting our 5th annual Man Up Inspire conference in Ottawa. We have ambitious dreams of expanding that into other cities. We have serious barriers around having enough money to do so, but we are going strong. I think we're going to crack 30 schools this year, which means hopefully more than 3,000 trained young men. I mean, multiply that by 5 years. So, I mean, we're into some seriously big numbers of foot soldiers out there trying to make changes in their communities. Thanks very much. Sorry for holding you away from your wine and cheese.